The last rays of the dying sun cast long shadows across Durango's dusty Main Street as Abigail Whitaker stumbled out of the stagecoach. Her blue traveling dress, once fine and proper, was torn and streaked with mud. Blood from a small cut on her forehead mixed with tears of exhaustion. She had been running for days, through towns that offered no safety, and this place, this small, rough-edged town at the edge of nowhere, was her last hope. "Someone help me, please," she whispered, her voice thin against the noise of evening. Her knees buckled, and before the ground could meet her, strong hands caught her. Through the blur of fatigue and fear, she saw a man's face above her, weathered, calm, with eyes the color of a clear summer sky. His rough hand steadied her shoulder as he spoke in a deep voice touched by the drawl of the West. "Easy there, ma'am. You're safe now." Abigail tried to pull away, weak but proud. Years of fine upbringing warned her not to lean on a stranger. "Why help me?" she managed to whisper, her voice trembling. The man's gaze softened. "Because you're the kind of woman worth saving." That was the last thing she heard before darkness claimed her. Lucas Yates, sheriff of Durango for 4 hard years, had seen his share of trouble. Drunk brawls, land feuds, broken hearts. But never a woman like this. Her face, even bruised and tired, carried dignity, and the look in her eyes before she fainted, that mix of fear and courage, told him she was running from something bad. "Maggie!" he called as he carried her toward the nearest boarding house. The woman in the doorway, gray-haired but sharp-eyed, came rushing forward. "Good Lord, Sheriff, what happened?" "She came off the afternoon stage and collapsed. Looks like she's been through hell," Lucas replied, his jaw tight. "Needs a doctor and a safe bed." "Bring her in. I'll get a room ready," Maggie said, ushering him inside. Within minutes, the stranger was resting under clean sheets. The doctor soon arrived, cleaned her wound, and confirmed what Lucas already suspected. She was worn down, hungry, and scared. "She'll be fine with rest," Maggie said later. "But something's chased her far. You can see it in her face." Lucas nodded, his hand resting on the star pinned to his vest. "Send word when she wakes." That night, sleep didn't come easy. He kept seeing her face in his mind, pale, frightened, but proud. Who was she? And what kind of danger followed her all the way to Durango? At dawn, Lucas was already up. After a quick breakfast at the small cafe, he returned to Maggie's. The boarding house smelled of biscuits and strong coffee. Maggie met him at the door with a knowing look. "She's awake," she said. "Doc says she's weak but on the mend. Name's Abigail Whitaker. Came from Boston, according to her papers." Lucas raised a brow. "Boston? That's a mighty long way from here." A soft, steady voice floated down the staircase. "Indeed it is, Sheriff." He turned. There she was, Abigail Whitaker. Cleaned up, in a borrowed dress, her auburn hair pinned neatly back, her brown eyes calm but guarded. She gripped the banister for support, standing tall despite her exhaustion. "Sheriff Lucas Yates," he said, removing his hat. "Hope you're feeling better this morning." "Thanks to your kindness and Mrs. Turner's care, I am," she replied with quiet grace. "I understand I have you to thank for helping me yesterday." Lucas shrugged. "Any decent man would have done the same." She gave a faint, sad smile. "Not in my recent experience." Lucas studied her carefully, her accent, her posture. Everything about her spoke of refinement, but her eyes told a different story: pain, fear, and loss. "Miss Whitaker," he began gently, "you arrived in my town half dead, and I reckon you didn't get that way by accident. I can't let you go until I know what's happened." She hesitated, her fingers twisting together. "Very well, Sheriff, but I'd prefer a private word." Maggie gestured to the parlor. "You can use my sitting room. Take your time." Inside, sunlight streamed through lace curtains, catching dust in the air. Abigail sat carefully, her back straight despite her weariness. Lucas waited, patient but alert. "I was to be married," she began quietly, "to a man named Richard Harrington, a business associate of my late father's. It was arranged after Father's passing 6 months ago." Her voice trembled. "At first, I believed him to be kind. I was wrong." Lucas leaned forward. "What did he do?" Not what, Sheriff, what he planned. She took a deep breath. 3 weeks ago, I discovered papers in his study, proof of fraud. He's been stealing from investors, including my father before his death. Millions, perhaps. I confronted him. Lucas's jaw tightened. And? He locked me in my room, told his friends I'd gone mad. Her voice wavered, but she pressed on. I overheard him speaking to his associates. They said I was a problem, and problems, they said, should be removed. Quote, Lucas's hand rested on his holster unconsciously. You escaped? Yes, that night. I fled with what little money I'd hidden. 2 of his men followed me. They caught up in Denver. Her fingers brushed the healing cut at her temple. I barely got away. Lucas nodded slowly. You've come a long way, Miss Whitaker. Quote, I thought Durango might be far enough, she said softly. My father once mentioned a friend here, a Mr. Johnson. He owned a newspaper. I hoped he could help. Lucas's eyes lit with recognition. Walter Johnson runs the Durango Herald. A good man. Relief flickered across her face. Then he's real. I feared it was another of Father's stories. I'll take you to him, Lucas said, standing. If your story's true, and I believe it is, then you're not safe. But you will be, as long as you're in Durango. She hesitated. I'm hardly one of your own, Sheriff. You are now, he said simply. For the first time, a small smile softened her face. Thank you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. Let's start by keeping you alive, he said, tipping his hat. We'll figure out the rest later. Outside, the sun climbed higher over Durango's main street. The air shimmered with heat and dust. Somewhere far from here, men were still hunting her. But for the first time in weeks, Abigail Whitaker wasn't running. She was being protected by a man who saw something in her worth saving, and neither of them knew yet how much that promise would cost. Walter Johnson's office smelled of ink and newsprint. The little building that housed the Durango Herald stood just off the main street, its windows streaked with dust from the endless wind. Inside, a heavy-set man with graying hair and a booming voice looked up from behind a desk stacked with papers. Sheriff Yates, what brings you here so early? And who's this fine lady? Miss Abigail Whitaker, Lucas replied. She's got business that might interest you, Walter. She knew your old friend Jonathan Whitaker back east. At the name, Walter's eyes widened. Good heavens, Jonathan's girl? Why, I haven't heard that name in years. Your father and I exchanged letters, but not since. He stopped when he saw the sorrow in her face. Ah, I see. My condolences, Miss Whitaker. Thank you, Abigail said softly. I was hoping you might help me understand some matters related to his business dealings. As they spoke, Lucas watched her. She sat upright, hands folded neatly, her voice calm and intelligent. The fear was still there beneath her composure, but so was strength, a quiet defiance that made him admire her all the more. Walter listened carefully as she told her story again, this time in greater detail, about Harrington, the documents, the threats, the men who had followed her west. When she placed the small packet of papers on the table, he leaned forward, adjusting his spectacles. Harrington, investments, he muttered, scanning the forged contracts. I've seen this name before. They've been advertising heavily, promising easy fortune to anyone willing to invest in railroads out here. These papers prove the lines don't even exist. Abigail nodded. He's taken everything from families who trusted him, including what remained of mine. Walter sat back heavily. Fraud like this isn't just a crime. It ruins honest towns like ours. People here put their life savings into dreams of progress. He turned to Lucas. What's your plan? First, keep Miss Whitaker safe, Lucas said. Then get these papers into the hands of the federal marshals. Fraud and mail crimes fall under their watch. Walter nodded grimly. The nearest marshals in Santa Fe. I can send a rider with copies by morning. Not copies, Abigail interrupted. Those papers are all I have left. If they're lost, the proof goes with them. Then we'll make copies here, Lucas said firmly. Walter's got the means, and we'll keep the originals locked in my office until the marshals arrive. Abigail's shoulders eased, relief flickering through her expression. For a moment, she looked younger. more like the woman she might have been before fear stole the light from her eyes. Later that afternoon, Lucas prepared to escort her somewhere safer. "Walter, make sure no one knows she's here," he said. "We can't risk Harrington's men sniffing around." Walter nodded. "Where will you take her?" "My sister's homestead, 10 miles out. It's hidden deep in a valley. Sarah'll take good care of her." Abigail hesitated. "I don't wish to bring trouble to your family, Sheriff." Lucas met her gaze. "You won't. Sarah can handle herself. And she'll welcome the help. You'll be safer there than anywhere near town." By mid-afternoon, they had a wagon ready, loaded with food, blankets, and a new calico dress for Abigail to replace her ruined clothes. She thanked Walter before climbing aboard. "Tell no one who you are," Walter warned. "As far as the town knows, you're a widow from Kansas helping the sheriff's sister." Abigail gave a solemn nod. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. You've done more than I deserve." Walter smiled kindly. "Nonsense, my dear. Evil wins when good folks do nothing. Your father would be proud of you." The road out of Durango was long and winding. The air was dry, carrying the faint scent of sage and pine. For a while, they rode in silence, the wagon wheels crunching over gravel. Abigail sat straight-backed, her bonnet shading her face, but Lucas could see the fatigue in the slope of her shoulders. "Do you truly think they'll come this far?" she asked after a while. "Hard to say," Lucas replied. "Men with money and pride don't like to be made fools of. They'll send others if they have to." Quote. She turned her gaze to the distant hills. "It's beautiful out here, so vast. In the east, everything is crowded. Houses, people, even thoughts. Here, there's space to breathe." Lucas nodded. "Space and danger both. The land's honest, though. Gives back what you earn, takes what you don't deserve." She smiled faintly. "You sound like a philosopher, Sheriff." He chuckled. "Just a man who's seen too much of what greed can do." When they reached the valley, the setting sun painted the world in gold. Sarah's cabin sat by a clear stream, surrounded by fences and grazing cattle. As they pulled in, 2 children ran from the porch, Thomas and Jenny, followed by a woman who looked like a softer female version of Lucas himself. "Uncle Lucas!" the children shouted, rushing to him. Sarah laughed, wiping her hands on her apron. "Well, this is a surprise. And who might this be?" "Sarah, this is Miss Abigail Whitaker," Lucas said. "She'll be staying for a spell." Sarah's eyes took in Abigail's appearance, the bruises, the tired eyes, and her expression softened. "Any friend of my brother's is welcome here." Inside, the cabin was warm and simple. The smell of stew filled the air. Abigail's heart ached at the sight of such homely peace. "It's lovely," she said quietly. Sarah smiled. "It's small, but it's home. You'll share my room. It gets cold at night, and there's comfort in company." Abigail tried to protest, but Sarah's tone left no room for argument. That evening, they ate together, simple food, hearty and filling. The children listened, wide-eyed, as their uncle told stories of his days in the cavalry, and Abigail found herself laughing for the first time in months. When the dishes were cleared and the children sent to bed, Lucas took Sarah aside. "Keep her safe," he said. "She's running from something dangerous. Men who won't hesitate to hurt her." Sarah's brow furrowed. "You trust her story?" "With my life," he said simply. Sarah studied him for a moment, then smiled knowingly. "You've got that look, brother." "What look?" "The one Pascal used to get when Ma walked into a room," she teased softly. Lucas frowned but said nothing. He checked the rifle by the door, kissed his sister's forehead, and stepped out into the night. Abigail stood on the porch, wrapped in a shawl, gazing at the stars. The mountain air was cool, and the world seemed endless. "Thank you, Sheriff," she said without turning, "for everything." He stopped beside her. "Get some rest, Miss Whitaker. You're safe here." "For now," she murmured, "but they won't stop." "I will," he said quietly. "That's a promise." She looked up at him then, the moonlight reflecting in her brown eyes. "Why help me?" she asked again, softer this time. Lucas's jaw tightened, his voice rough with emotion. "Because you're the kind of woman worth saving." The words hung between them. carried away on the mountain wind. Inside, the fire crackled softly, and for a few brief hours, peace returned to the valley. But far down the road, two men had just stepped off the eastbound stage in Durango, well-dressed, cold-eyed, and asking about a woman with auburn hair and a Boston accent. And the promise Lucas made that night was about to be tested in ways neither of them could imagine. The next 2 days passed quietly in the hidden valley. Abigail helped Sarah with the children, learning to churn butter, fetch water, and mend fences with hands that had once known only silk gloves. There was peace in the rhythm of simple work, though her sleep was never easy. Each night she woke to the echo of bootsteps that weren't there. Lucas rode out from Durango on the third morning, his face drawn with worry. He had spotted two strangers in town, sharp suits, polished boots, and the kind of cold eyes that never looked at a man, only through him. "They're asking about you," he told Abigail and Sarah when he arrived. "Names are Crawford and Ellis. Say they're searching for a woman who's gone missing after a nervous breakdown." Quote. Abigail paled. "They work for Richard." Sarah's hand went to her heart. "You mean the man she was to marry?" "More like the man who tried to own her," Lucas said grimly. "They've got money, guns, and a story to make her look crazy. I told them nothing. Walter spreading word she went west for California." "So they'll leave?" Sarah asked hopefully. Lucas's eyes darkened. "Maybe, but if they don't, I'll be ready." Abigail felt guilt twist in her chest. "You're putting yourself and your family in danger." Lucas turned toward her, his tone gentle but firm. "Miss Whitaker, the only danger here is letting men like Harrington win. You did the right thing standing up to him." "Now it's my turn." Abigail looked away, struggling to find her voice. "You hardly know me." "I know enough," he said quietly. That night the wind carried the scent of pine through the valley, and though no one said it aloud, each of them sensed something was coming. By morning, Lucas's fears proved right. He rode hard back from town with news that chilled them all. "Harrington himself's in Durango," he said breathlessly. "Brought 6 men with him. I told him you'd gone west, but I don't think he believed me." Abigail's hand trembled. "He came himself?" "He's desperate," Lucas said. "But desperate men make mistakes. We're moving you to the old mining cabin up in the high country. Fewer roads, harder to find." Sarah didn't hesitate. "We'll be ready within the hour." They packed quickly, food, blankets, ammunition, and the precious documents hidden in Abigail's satchel. The children, frightened but brave, followed their mother's calm example. The ride was long and steep. The narrow trail wound through pine forests and rocky ledges. By dusk, they reached the abandoned silver mine. A single cabin stood beside it, sturdy but weathered. It smelled of dust and time. "It's not much," Lucas said. "It's safe," Abigail replied. "That's all that matters." They settled in as night fell. Lucas took first watch, scanning the dark hills from a ridge above the cabin. The stars burned cold and bright overhead. Somewhere far below, a coyote cried. Abigail joined him quietly, a blanket around her shoulders. "You should rest," he murmured. "I can't," she said softly. "Every time I close my eyes, I see him." "You're safe now," Lucas promised. "He'll never touch you again." Quote. She looked at him, her face pale in the moonlight. "You really believe that?" "I do," he said simply. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt charged, heavy with everything unspoken. "Lucas," she whispered, "when this is over, when justice is done, what happens then?" He looked at her, his jaw tightening. "You'll go back east. Rebuild your life." She smiled sadly. "I have no life there anymore. Maybe I'll stay where people see me for who I am, not what I own." Before he could answer, the night split with a sound that turned his blood cold. Horses. "Inside," Lucas ordered, drawing his gun. "Wake the others. No lamps." The cabin went dark. Through the cracks between the shutters, faint lantern light flickered on the trail below. Voices carried up the slope. "Tracks lead this way," someone called. "Crawford." Lucas crouched near the door, rifle ready. Sarah moved the children toward the back room while Walter took position at a window. Abigail gripped Sarah's spare pistol, her hands steady. "They're 4, maybe 5, Walter whispered. "Harrington's not with them." Lucas nodded. "He'll be waiting nearby." The first shot came without warning. Glass shattered, and the air filled with smoke and noise. Lucas fired back, his shots precise and controlled. Walter's rifle answered from the side window, dropping one of the attackers. The others fell back, regrouping in the trees. Then came a sudden whoosh and an orange glow. Flames. One of Crawford's men had tossed a torch onto the roof. "Fire!" Sarah shouted. "Out the back!" Lucas barked. He fired 2 quick shots, covering their escape as the roof caught fire. Abigail grabbed the satchel and helped lead the children through the rear door into the trees. Behind them, the cabin roared into flames. Lucas fought to keep them moving. "Stay low, don't stop," quote. They reached a clearing and regrouped. The children were crying, their faces streaked with soot, but they were alive. Walter looked grim. "They'll be on us again by morning." "Then we move," Lucas said. "There's an old Ute meeting ground 10 miles north. Caves, water, good cover. We can hold out there until help comes." The journey was brutal. The mountain trails were steep, the air thin. By dawn, they reached the Twin Lakes surrounded by red cliffs and pines. The caves there offered shelter from wind and prying eyes. "This will do," Lucas said, setting up a lookout position. For a few hours, they rested. The children slept, and Sarah's arm, grazed by a bullet, was cleaned and bandaged by Abigail's careful hands. In the quiet, Abigail sat beside Lucas on a rocky ledge overlooking the valley. "You could have let me go," she said softly. "Saved your sister and yourself." He turned to her, his voice low and rough. "That's not how I was raised." She met his gaze. "Why risk everything for me?" He hesitated, then said the words that had haunted him for days. "Because you're worth it. Because you had the courage to stand up when no one else would. And because from the moment I caught you on that street, something in me knew I couldn't let you fall again." Her eyes shimmered. "And what if you do?" "Then I'll fall with you," he said. Before either could say more, Walter's voice echoed from the rocks. "Riders coming! 6, maybe 7!" Lucas's heart dropped. Harrington. He could see them now. Men in dark coats, rifles glinting in the sunlight. He turned to Abigail. "Get inside the cave with Sarah and the children. There's a narrow tunnel at the back. It leads to a hidden exit. If we fall, you run." "I'm not leaving you," she said fiercely. "You are," he insisted. "That's an order." Her lip trembled, but she nodded. "Then come back to me, Sheriff. Promise." "I promise." The battle came fast and furious. Gunfire thundered across the rocks. Lucas and Walter fought side by side, picking off riders as they climbed. 2 went down, but more kept coming. Crawford's voice rose above the chaos. "Give us the woman, Sheriff, and no one else has to die." "You'll never touch her again," Lucas shouted back. The fight dragged on, echoing through the canyon. Then a scream tore from the cave. Sarah's voice. Lucas turned just in time to see one of Harrington's men circle around and fire through the entrance. He charged forward, bullets whizzing past. The man barely had time to reload before Lucas's shot dropped him. Inside, Abigail knelt beside Sarah, pressing her hand against a bleeding arm. "She's fine," Abigail gasped. "I've got her." Lucas turned, catching sight of Crawford retreating up the trail. "Stay here," he ordered, sprinting after him. They met near the mouth of the cave, both raising their guns. 2 shots cracked at once. Crawford fell, but Lucas staggered back, a graze burning across his ribs. Then came a new voice, smooth, cold, and full of pride. "That's enough, Sheriff." Richard Harrington stood among the rocks, revolver drawn. "Step aside, and I'll let your sister and the others live." Lucas's reply was steady. "You'll face justice, Harrington, dead or alive." Harrington sneered. "You think you can stop me? You're just a small-town lawman." "Maybe," Lucas said, leveling his rifle, "but even small towns have graves." The next shot echoed across the mountains. When the smoke cleared, Richard Harrington lay on the ground, clutching his shoulder, his power broken at last. Days later, the federal marshals arrived, following Walter's signals from Durango. Harrington and his wounded men were taken into custody, the documents secured as evidence. When it was over, Abigail stood beside Lucas on the ridge where it had all begun. The air was cold, but the dawn was clear. "It's finished," she whispered. "Not yet," he said quietly. "You'll have to testify. Go back east for a while." She looked up at him, her eyes full of everything she couldn't say. "And if I come back?" He smiled faintly. "Then I'll be right here." She reached for his hand, her voice soft but sure. "You helped me when I had nothing left. You saw something worth saving. I'll come back, Lucas. Not because I need saving, but because I choose you." Months later, she did return, to a rebuilt Durango, to the man who had risked his life for her, and to a new beginning neither of them had dared to dream of. And when she stepped off that stagecoach this time, Lucas Yates was waiting, not as a stranger, but as the man who had always believed she was worth saving.